to my video series, The Heroine's Journey. It's time to find your happiness. So I was telling you in my last video about how I became obsessed with the pattern of the heroine's journey. And it's interesting because I came back from that presentation where I had learned about it and I couldn't stop talking about it. And people were kind of, well, what is this, Susanna? And I remember I had a friend, I explained the steps. I explained that the dragon that we meet on the road is kind of like the biggest challenges that we have in our lives, but we call it the dragon. And I remember my friend saying, you know, Susanna, if you wanted to do this and market this, then those people that do Dungeons and Dragons might be your audience. And I'm thinking, no, those aren't, maybe, but I was thinking of real women, real people who could get into looking at their lives through this very interesting, ancient, archetypal lens of the heroine's journey, that teaching them, and that has become my mission, is to teach this to everyone, every woman in particular. Teaching them this will help them see their lives differently, from a different perspective. I want women to go, oh, you mean when I left that horrible marriage, or when I went for that promotion and I did something that required me to leave my comfort zone and go for it, that is what put me on the heroine's journey. And all those adventures, well, those were hard times, but yes, I could see how that has built me and grown me and molded me to a bigger person than I was previously, or a more evolved person, and usually definitely a more successful person. So that's what I wanted people to see. And yes, okay, maybe Dungeons and Dragons, it works for people who play those games too, absolutely. But I wanted what I call real life heroines, real life women going through their day to see that they were also on a heroic path. And so this is why I'm doing this video series and why I'm here talking to you. And so the last one we talked about ordinary life. So if you looked at this as a game, ordinary life is the start block where you start. And if you look at my map, which I showed you in the fourth video, it's on the lower left-hand corner. We start there. We start in ordinary life. The heroine is in her village and she doesn't know she's a heroine. She doesn't know she's going on an adventure, but things are beginning to feel uncomfortable. So the time for a call is at hand. And let's just go to Dorothy first. What's going on with Dorothy? And there she is, still in Kansas, and Miss Gulch has been looking for her, and she decides to run away from home. And so this is sort of a start for her of leaving her comfort zone, for sure. And she goes, and the storm is building in the background. The clouds are real. I mean, you know this tornado is coming. So we know this big change is coming, but she doesn't. And she meets Professor Marvel, who, as we learn later, is Wizard of Oz. And he's a kindly guy, and he actually convinces her to come home. So in a way, she's feeling this call, and he kind of gets her to put it aside, which is another point on the journey, which we call refusal of the call. And so she does go home. But then what happens is the tornado comes and just takes her. So the change, no matter how she might have refused doing anything different, she went back to kind of find where Auntie Em and her uncle were, and the change comes and goes off with her. So that's her call and what it looks like. But for some people, again, it's just an internal feeling disconcerted and uncomfortable, and I think I need to do something. And for others, it just bongs you on the head, something very abrupt, very clear, do something. And so just to give you some examples from my own life, and I tend to have the kind of abrupt do something calls, though I've experienced both kinds. And remember that in your life, you will get many calls, and they can happen in different areas of your life. And we're going to talk in the next video about where the heck do these calls come from. There's different theories about that. But for me, so one I remember very clearly is I was working in a big company. I'd been there 12 years, and I had been working on what was supposed to be an important project with a colleague. And we were gung-ho, had been special training, special software. We were really spending a lot of time, overtime, working on this, what was supposed to be high priority. We were told we had to get it done. And then one day, our boss came in and said, yeah, well, we're thinking we're going to back burner this project now because this is more important or that is more important. So we're taking you off the project. And I'm sure you've had that feeling of you spent all this time on something that you thought was important and now it's not. So we went and kind of did the default human thing. We went into a conference room, shut the door, and just started complaining. Oh, I can't believe they would have done that. They don't know what the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. This is such poor organization. Complain. And the call came into me. And the call was just, I felt it and kind of like had this message inside of me. You are wasting your time, Susanna. You are wasting your time sitting here in this room complaining. You have a choice. Decide what you want to do and go after that. It's useless to be complaining about something you can't change. So it kind of just dropped in on me. So I did listen to that call. And then a year later, I was out of that company on my own, being an entrepreneur. So that was one. Another was when I was in my first marriage, 13-year marriage, and things just weren't going well. I was unhappy, but I was going to make it work. And I was just kind of pretending that it was okay, even though inside I wasn't okay. And I had people saying to me, I don't know how, you're dealing with this because of what was going on. I'd say, oh, it doesn't bother me. When of course it did bother me. And so that was kind of different in that I knew I should make a change, but actually what I was doing was refusing the call. I was not paying attention to those inner feelings that were urging me to do something different. And then what happens is if you don't pay attention, then you get something called the wake-up call, which is a call. And what I've found in my experience and in working and coaching with other people is that a call won't leave you alone. It will keep coming back and being persistent. And it tends to get stronger if you don't listen. And so I just started getting signs that this marriage is over. And I think the biggest thing for me was seeing the impact on the kids of an unhappy marriage. And that kind of made me take action, which I did, and got a divorce. And then, interestingly enough, I received a call with the person that I married, my current husband of 30 years. He and I had met in our business, and we were not really working together, but we had gone with some other people on a trip to Taiwan. And while we were there, it just seemed like the two of us clicked, not in any major way, but I just was definitely very intrigued with this guy. And I felt sure that when we got back from Taiwan, that he would call me, make some overture. Now, I knew that he was in a current relationship with, which might make you wonder, why did I think that I was so sure he would call me? But I don't know. I just had that feeling. So I waited and I waited and I waited and nothing happened. And one night I was walking my dog Bino, and we were outside. It was 10 o'clock at night. It was cold. And again, this call descended inside of me and said, call him. And yeah, at the same time that I heard it, I also at the same time felt the fear of, oh no, what would that be like? Which probably many of you are thinking, oh, come on, Susanna, calling someone, what's the big deal? Well, I had been married a long time. I had done some dating, but I hadn't been calling guys to go out on dates with me. So it was, for me, a big deal. And also, interestingly, sometimes when things would happen to me and I was thinking about, should I do it or not, I would call my friends and say, well, what do you think? I'm thinking about doing this and getting their opinion. I was very clear, and I think this was the part of the call, that I knew what I was going to do and I didn't want anybody else's opinion. I wanted to go on my own inner guidance, which was saying, call him. So I struggled the next day with all my fears and anxieties. What was going to happen? What if? And I picked up the phone at work and called him and said something like, I'm not sure if you're in a position to do this with me, but I'd like to ask you out to lunch. And there was this big pause where I was, oh my gosh, what did I, all my what ifs were coming true. And he said, I would love to do that, Susanna. And so I set in motion a whole change of events that led to us getting married. And here we are 30 years later. So 3 examples of really stop complaining, you know what to do, go do it. You are unhappy, you're trying to pretend you're not, but boy, look at how your kids are dealing with it. And then walking the dog, go call them, stop waiting. So inner guidance all the time. I feel it's my own inner wise self helping me out here. So I've had these calls, and again, that's one way that calls come in. They can be very quiet, still small voice within telling you to do something. It's interesting too that sometimes when people keep not paying attention, that the thing happens. It's just kind of like what happened to Dorothy, that the tornado just comes and the call just takes you. And people will come to me for coaching and they hate their boss. We've talked maybe 3 sessions about how to deal with this boss. They hate their boss. They would wish they could leave, but nope, they're not ready. They want it to be the right time, just another year. And then the next time they come to see me, they've been fired. So again, the call, here you go, you need to do this. Or even with an unhappy marriage, where people have talked to me about, I've got to leave, but I'm not ready to leave. And then bingo, they're left. Their husband or partner has left. So sometimes the call just doesn't wait. And maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the call to come in. Well, I don't think you're ever really ready. It's not necessarily your timing. Maybe it's the universe's timing. And it can be upsetting and it can be scary. Look at Dorothy. Look at Luke Skywalker. We'll go back to him in Star Wars. So he was unhappy where he was. He had to fix the droid. And then the droid pops out, Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I need your help. So he actually goes and helps the droid find Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan invites him. Here's his call, as well as what happens with R2D2. It's the call to go on an adventure, to go help with the resistance. And he actually refuses it. So that's his call. And then Bilbo Baggins, remember what happens to him? So he's in his great little, perfect, beautiful little hobbit hole, having his breakfast, and there's a strong knock on the door, and he's irritated. Who would be calling now? Everybody knows that you don't call this time in the morning or whatever. Who's bothering me? And he goes to the door, and there's the wizard Gandalf, who's absolutely marked up his beautiful green door. So he's annoyed by that. So he gets a call. Gandalf wants help. He wants somebody, a burglar, to go with him on an adventure. Burglar being another name for hero, because that's what he turns out to be. So the call comes, and it's like, rest assured, it will come, because this is how you're going to rise to your full potential. And that's the whole purpose of the journey, is to get you there. So, dear heroines, thank you so much for coming along with me on the journey. And always remember, you are